Hello, everyone. Welcome to Everything is Energy, and welcome to the weekly forecast for the week of May 17th through the 23rd, 2026. The theme this week is awakening the mind and the mental field, as well as opening and softening of the heart. And, this week is really one of the more mentally active weeks since Uranus has entered Gemini. So there's movement in thought, movement in communication, movement in relationships, really movement in perception itself. Um, so I really just kind of want to say that that is because we have on the 24th, the day after a Sunday next week, we have the exact conjunction of Uranus and Sedna. And so that's definitely about perception, but I'll get to that later. This week is preparing us for that. And this week we have Mercury, the planet of the mind and communication. It's really active this week. It's forming aspects to a bunch of planets. And we also have Venus shifting from Gemini into Cancer. So let's get into it. Let's start off with today, May 17th. Today's a day of healing conversations and mental awakening, and it's a really powerful opening. We have Venus sextiling Chiron at 2 p.m. And this is a really wonderful, relational healing aspect. Venus is in Gemini at this juncture, and it's really harmonizing with Chiron in the sign of Aries. And the opportunities it's creating there are for things like honest conversation, emotional openness, excuse me, healing through communication. Something vulnerable may be gently expressed, and this aspect really reminds us that, connection can become medicine when authenticity and truth and honesty are of the moment. Later on Sunday around 8 o'clock in the evening, Mercury is conjunct Uranus in Gemini. And this is one of the more important aspects of the week, partly because of what I mentioned, because of we're prepping for the next Sunday's shift of Uranus into Sedna. But really, when Uranus meets Gemini, let's just talk about what that is. That's really going to dramatically amplify insight, innovation, sudden realizations, mental speed. So, unexpected clarity, nervous system activation, rapid thinking, really just kind of breakthrough ideas are able to finally perceive something that maybe you've been perceiving on one hand, but not quite sure what you're perceiving or how you're perceiving it. So this is really a beginning of a new mental rhythm also emerging collectively. And it's going to sound like a broken record this week. It's preparing us for Sunday. Next Sunday when Uranus is conjunct Sedna. But that also means that Sedna is operational in the background if Mercury is exactly conjunct Uranus right now. So, the challenge here isn't stimulation. The thing that is a challenge is to stay grounded and, stay rooted and stay present. And so let's move on to Monday, May 18th. Monday is a day of emotional depth beneath the surface. We have Venus biquintile Pluto at around 10:30 in the morning. And, you know, that's subtle because Pluto is subtle energy, but it's a powerful emotional aspect, a relational aspect. Venus and Pluto create emotional depth and magnetic types of connection, and also awareness of hidden feelings, hidden needs for justice and harmony and balance. So the interesting thing about this is because it's Pluto, it may not appear dramatically outwardly, because Venus tends to be more of a personal planet and Pluto is a generational planet. But internally, something big is afoot this week for sure, and Monday is no exception. So, on Monday, I would say it's a really wonderful day to pay attention to emotional nuance, pay attention to relational nuance. Pay attention to if there's anything that you're seeking to balance or harmonize in your life. Pay attention to the energy that is beneath the surface, the energy that is behind the words or the behavior. Let's move to Tuesday, May 19th now. Tuesday is a day of insight and emotion and really mental complexity. It's one of the busiest days this week. Astrologically, we have Mercury sextiling Neptune at 12:05 a.m. Mercury sextiling Neptune is kind of a neat aspect because it's a flow, it's a blend of our mental field, of our intellect, of our 3D communication, and our intuition and our ability and our capacity to see beyond illusion and delusion. Do you see how I'm repeating myself with all these aspects as we're, wait for it, preparing for Uranus conjunct Saturn next Sunday? I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but I'm not making this up. The reason why I'm laughing is because I there's a really big energetic happening that's exactly a week from when I'm recording, and I love it when the planets just speak and then they'll kind of like repeat a theme, and then it'll kind of come through in another nuanced way, and it's like, are you sure you get it? Oh, here's one more thing that maybe will help you understand what the general energy that you're dealing with is. So that's, the mind is more intuitive with that aspect, Mercury sextiling Neptune, and meditation, imagination, creative insight. We also have just about an hour and a half after, around 1:30 in the morning, we have Venus sextiling Mars. And Venus is entering Cancer here. And this immediately is going to harmonize with Mars in Taurus. And so Venus and Mars, archetypically they're the divine masculine and feminine, and sometimes depending on what signs they are in, they flow and they work, and sometimes they clash. And so Venus and Cancer, Mars and Taurus is really going to create grounding between our emotional needs, our physical presence, our relational desire, and there's a lot of warmth here. Taurus is given the warmth, and so is Cancer. And there's a desire for embodied connection, maybe even deeply rooted connection, emotional safety. At 8:30 in the morning on Tuesday, we have the sun semi-sextile to Chiron. And this is going to give us this kind of subtle awareness of vulnerability. Semi-sextiles are minor aspects, but something sensitive may quietly surface. And I wanted to note that because it's not overwhelming, it's just worth noticing. Mercury is going to be squaring the North Node around noon. In the same day, mental tension is a square around where we're headed, why our soul is here. That's the North Node. And, you know, this is our mental field, this is our communication field. And I'll just say, this is reminding us that not every thought form deserves equal attention. If part of the path that we're on is truly harnessing the power of our consciousness, the creative power of our consciousness, the ability that we have to create our world, then yeah, not every thought deserves our attention. Um, One more aspect. I mentioned this was a busy day. We're still on Tuesday, guys, on the 19th. So Mercury is trining Pluto at around 7 p.m. So this is going to deepen the clarity. This is one of the strongest mental aspects of this week for having deep insight and for seeing beneath the surface. So something important may suddenly make sense. There might be this, again, here's the theme. We might be able to see beneath the surface around communication, around what people are meaning, around what the differences between the words and the energy behind them. So this is about truth telling as well. All right, let's move along. Let's go on to Wednesday, May 20th. A little bit of restlessness and adjustment on this day. We have just before 1 in the morning, Venus is semi-sextile to Uranus. And this is just a subtle emotional shift. Venus semi-sextile to Uranus is gonna, pardon my barking dog. Hold on a sec. It occurs to me that maybe you can't even hear my barking dog. Sorry about that, guys. There's this kind of subtle emotional and relational shift harmonizing in our communities and in our collective. We may really start to crave some shifts around themes about justice and harmony and balance and even worthiness and love. And it likely will, all those themes don't on the forefront feel emotional, but the craving might come from an emotional place. And it's worth noting this isn't destabilizing, it's disrupting stagnation in the system. And as we are learning, that is okay, even though sometimes it's not. Ultimately, it's all unfolding perfectly. We also have on May 20th Mercury semi-square to Jupiter around noon. So the mind may overextend, overthink, overstimulate too many ideas at once. This is where I mentioned it's a good week to also stay rooted here and to be in the flows of the realization. So really pausing before we commit to things is a nice way to think about this aspect. And finally, we have Mars semi-sextile to Uranus around 3:30 in the afternoon on this same day. And this is where I mentioned restlessness. Uh, semi-sextile is going to flow some subtle energy, some activation, slightly edgy, maybe. It's a good day for a meditation. It's a good day for a grounding practice. It's a good day to pause and take a couple deep breaths at some point, go outside, have a cup of tea. Something for self-care will go a really a long way on Wednesday. Thursday's a quieter day, on the other hand. That's a day of, as I kind of like to say, of integration. So this is important. After several days that I just went through, there's a lot going on in terms of mental acceleration in our field and downloads and collective transformation. This is a day of integration. So really, as I was mentioning, it kind of the aspect of Mars semi-sextiling to Uranus kind of just puts a pin in this idea of how about some time to oneself? How about some quiet time? How about some integration time? And then, Friday, May 22nd, this is one of the most significant days of the week. This is a day of major mental and emotional activation. It starts off at 2:30 in the morning. Venus is squaring Neptune. So our clarity around um, justice, balance, harmony, our clarity around our emotions might blur. Neptune, the planet of illusion and delusion, you know, but when we think about this is a process of being in the uncertainty and embracing it for its purpose, knowing that we are not forever stuck in a space of uncertainty about balance and harmony and justice and emotional well-being. What happens during times like that is it can bring idealization. It can bring this heightened sense of sensitivity. It can, you know what you don't want, you know what you do want. So it's a really good time to stay connected to reality while really remaining compassionate. At 10:30 in the morning on this day, we have Sun conjunct Uranus in Gemini. This is a major collective activation point. And I'm going to say it again. It's preparing us for what's coming on Sunday with Sedna and Uranus. But Sun conjunct Uranus, this is illuminating in Gemini, bringing this kind of sudden awareness into our 3D daily lives. Into breakthrough thinking is no longer just this nebulous idea that we say, oh yeah, that'd be nice if we had one of those. This is about awakening that's coming through into our lives and our world. And it's awakening through information, it's awakening through communication. Because it's Uranian, it can feel electric. The nervous system can feel activated. And as I mentioned, this is part of the larger Uranus and Gemini story that's now unfolding collectively. So Uranus is definitely active afoot this week and into next week. We have two more aspects on Friday, I'm sorry. And that is, Mercury sextiling Saturn at 2 p.m. And this is really going to give us some grounding. Mercury harmonizing with Saturn, which is what a sextile is helping us to stabilize things. It's going to help us stabilize our mental field, help us stabilize our communication, help us for if there's all sorts of things shooting across our perception, it's really going to help us hone in and organize all the information that's coming through. And then at 7:30 at night, we have Venus trining the North Node. This is a really beautiful emotional alignment. It's a beautiful collective, harmonious alignment. If I was mentioning what was happening with Venus, squaring Neptune just earlier in the day, to have her trining the North Node, it's like I was saying, that sense of uh, fog or not quite being sure or feeling that there's some kind of loss of connection to justice and harmony and beauty and those Venusian concepts. Trining the North Node is going to really help us reorient from our heart toward why we're here, and not just reorient, feel it, know it, hum it without a doubt. So it's a really wonderful healing aspect on Friday night. Saturday, May 23rd, this is a day of emotional complexity and subtle healing. And that's because we start off with Venus quincunx Pluto, excuse me, at around 10:30 in the morning. Quincunxes are adjustment points. And so this is a collective adjustment point, something within our relationships to each other, our relationships to our society and our world, even our emotional expectations might, be up for some recalibration. And power dynamics or intensity may quietly surface. We also have Mercury semi-square to Chiron at 5:30 in the evening. So, our words and our communication and our perception may touch some sensitive places. This is a day for gentleness and mindfulness. And, I think as we move through these times of personal and collective transformation, coming from the heart is just always such a great idea. And then we close with Mars semi-sextile to Neptune at around 11 p.m. on Saturday night. And so this is going to soften the action. This is a blending, this week is going to close with this kind of blending of movement and intuition. And it's not forceful, it's subtle, it's intuitive. And so I don't know if you can see, there's kind of these waves that are moving through this week. And waves are one of the ways that the universe communicates with us, or the way. If we are broadcasting mechanisms and we're picking up on energy and energy field, well, one of the ways that we understand energy to move is in a wave. And so waves, if we're going through highs and lows and peaks of intensity and days of integration, and we're prepping for this so-called big day the day after. And I guess I'm building up the Uranus Sedna conjunction, but I think there's something really neat there that's going to poke its head out for us, and we're preparing for that. So this is just a really good week to, realize that it's okay to be emotionally sensitive, that we're moving through a time of relational healing, that we're moving through a time of nervous system activation, and that there are some really deep truths that are emerging, both through interpersonal communication and also just simply through our heightened ability to perceive beyond what is mundane. So this week really asks us, can we remain grounded as our awareness expands? And can we stay connected to our body and grounded into the moment as our mental field is being activated? And can we also really allow new understanding in without being overwhelmed by it? So the world is changing quickly this week, and our nervous system deserves care as we move through it. Make a note of that. Up next, I'll offer a meditation to support us this week. Have a great time, you guys. Blessings and love.